Hello and welcome to TV DNA, our Severance episode. This week we'll be covering season 2, episode 8, Sweet Vitriol. There will be spoilers ahead, so if you haven't yet seen episode 8 of Severance, make sure you watch that and then come back and listen to us. My name is Adam H, and I'm higher than a bearded vulture. I've been joined by my two co-hosts. Flip my toboggan, it's only Damo C.
We were once chums.
Oh, and are we not anymore? Or maybe I'll have better luck with my other co-host. They do say the apple don't fall far from the gutter. It's Grace C.
Oh, stop being such a huff peddler.
Well, I was higher than a bearded vulture. You've both brought me down now. But we ought to say before we get started, happy birthday, Damo C.
Oh, thank you so much.
Damo, I have ordered a watermelon version of your head. It should be arriving later this afternoon.
Amazing.
It'll be the perfect centerpiece for your waffle party.
I certainly shan't give in to woe.
Well, actually, what we got you as a birthday present, Damo, was an episode full of Patricia Arquette as Harmony Cobelvig.
Yes, please.
How are you feeling? How's that crush coming on?
It's good. Look, I told you before, I think that she was kind of very much like she struck me as very much an injured sparrow type situation. As I said also previously, I'm very much attracted to a woman who doesn't like to smile. So that's why Cobelvig was really in that sweet spot for me. And she was humanized. Guys, I told you from the beginning, she's a goodie.
Do you think this is the start of the redemption arc for Harmony?
Why did we have this episode otherwise?
Yeah, we definitely, I mean, we learnt a huge amount, didn't we, about her and her childhood. So yeah, definitely that now that Milchek's redemption arc is cancelled, we'll need someone else.
Yeah, well, throughout this episode, Devon's trying to get in touch with her. So, we had that whole thing of Ragabi leaving her in the previous episode, and she was threatening to call Harmony, and clearly she makes that decision to do it multiple times. Um, but yeah, what did we make of Salt's Neck as a place?
Oh, yeah, I loved the setting of this episode. It looked like kind of the last American town on the edge of the earth, didn't it? Pe- Brutally cold. I mean, I could feel that wind as I was watching it. Oh, sorry, I've cracked myself up there. But yeah, remote industrial decline, drug addiction, possibly long-term pain and illnesses from that industry. So really, really a fascinating place. And for Harmony to have grown up there, left, and then returned, I mean, that's just the making of some great drama there, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I believe this was filmed in Newfoundland, which is why it was looked so frigid. Um, yeah. I mean, it is that classic, and we get it throughout the episode, really, about when, much like Kier is a company town, but what happens when that company moves on?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like a place. One of my notes was, "Is everyone here ill?" And it does feel like a place that's had the life sucked out of it or huffed out of
Uh,
it, maybe.
Do you want
Yeah,
to say that again? I think I ruined your huffed out of it, Adam. Sorry.
No worries. Or huffed out of it, maybe.
love it when we say a joke twice.
I know
Uh,
what.
Oh no.
this will be a treat if we do put this episode up on YouTube. But I wanted to just come back to Salt's Neck as a name because what is salt used for?
Blend
Preserving.
Preserving things. Yeah.
or flavoring things make things better.
Yeah. A salt can also be a sailor.
Mm-hmm. Right. Who have necks? Yeah.
Yeah. Too much salt is bad for you.
Rubbing it into a wound's not a particularly good thing.
Famously bad.
Okay, good. But no, I did think it did make me think of preserving things and the whole idea of, our Egans being preserved potentially, as we've postulated in the past.
Now, I can't remember. What is the distance between Keir and Saltneck?
Well, I kind it felt like she'd been driving for a long time, just from her sort of. Essentially, it felt like she's been sort of living in her car. She's certainly been driving overnight because she brushed her teeth in that opening. So yeah, I don't know what that means, but my question was, yeah, how long has she been driving for? Because we haven't seen. I mean, yeah, if we were smart, we'd have like multiple timelines up in front of us so we could work out exactly how long it has been since we've seen Cobell. Maybe 24 hours in Severance time?
Yeah, obviously I knew this and I didn't just Google it. But it's 238 miles from Keir to to Saltneck, sorry.
Would that be miles or kilometers?
It says miles. I don't think they do kilometers in America.
They're not.
Really?
Yeah, it's a whole metric empirical measurements issue.
So it's quite far.
Well, we meet some people in Salt's Neck, don't we? There's a little sort of cafe place. It's not completely deserted.
Yeah, and we have to just give a shout out to the name, the Drippy Pot Cafe.
I hadn't spotted that. That's brilliant. But yeah, they're talking about a clusterfuck up on North Pine where a 2-ton snow plow was flipped. And we just get the sense that kind of everybody knows each other. I mean, it doesn't look like there are a lot of people left here, but yeah, small community hidden in the middle of the mountains. Rose gets a refill, and the chap in there gets a bottle of free ether.
Yeah,
Yeah.
on the house for him, especially. Um, yeah, and the kind of the first people we meet though is obviously Cabell seeing that guy, what I thought was glue, having a huff. Um, and yeah, what an introduction to the town from that to the Drippy Pot Cafe. It was just perfect. And Cobell's entrance, it was giving such cowboy in a saloon energy, wasn't it?
Yeah, I can see that definitely. And the other thing, of course, is that there is no one young here. Everyone is old or older. Yeah. Was it Hampton when they talk about how things have gone, Hampton says, well, with the market readjustment from a few years ago and the fluctuating interest rates, there was a retrenchment from some of the core infrastructure investments. So it's just corporate nonsense to say, you guys are fucked. We're not gonna look after you anymore.
Yes, one. I mean, when he said that, and I paused it and rewound it and wrote it down, and then understood what he was saying. My question was immediately: has Lumen been here and left? And as if Harmony's arrival wasn't evidence of that itself, we then get to see, or she says, "Meet me at the factory," and we see on the side of that old, disused factory now. We assume it's a disused factory. The Lumen logo. Um, yeah,
I loved not knowing what their relationship was at this point. Like it was totally open. I was like, could they be brother and sister? They have the same eyes. They have those blue eyes. So that was kind of on the table. Then I was like, were they lovers? And I really loved that. I think they kind of drip fed their relationship really well throughout the episode. Um, then this is where we get, yeah, we were once chums, old colleagues lift each other up. And then he says, colleagues, it was child fucking labor. And I was like, oh God, this is good.
yeah. Again, because I was like, they look a similar age, so he can't be blaming her for the child labor. But we do later find out, obviously, that they used to work as kids in this factory together.
Yeah, and also um in the previously on Severance, there was discussion about how Keir had met his woman at the ether factory. So there was that romantic element of it there as well. Because I initially the same as like, are they siblings? But it felt like there was something else, that edge to it. Um, yeah. But yeah, this whole bit, I think there's the other reason why he relented was why I thought that there was more likely for it to be a romantic relationship than if they were siblings.
Yeah, interesting. There's I've written in my notes, Rose gets a refill, and then later on I've written Dot is asked to close up. Now I don't know if I've confused Dot with Unforgotten. Was her name Dot or Rose?
It was Dot in Unforgotten.
But what was it in Severance?
I'm sure it was Dot. He's not expecting Rose is gonna lock up. I think she's got an oxygen tank, Rose, right? She's her lungs have been so thoroughly destroyed by the ether factory. I don't think he's expecting her to cash up the till.
Oh, I thought he was asking that old woman to close up. I was like, she doesn't look like she could close much of anything.
Rolling around with her oxygen tank, bless her.
Anyway, minor point. Let's move on. They talk about going to Sissy's. That's what she wants, Harmony. She wants Hampton. We don't really find his name out until the end of the episode, but she wants him to drive her to Sissy's because if they're watching the house, they'll recognize my car. So she's still very much worried about Lumen folk. And Hampton says she still lives by the 9. And we get the 9 mentioned in the recap, don't we? The Harmony talking about it. Is this kind of a Lumen way of living?
Yeah, it's the 9 core principles or something like that, I think. Irving's definitely mentioned them.
Okay, great. I just hadn't heard it kind of used in that way as the 9. At first, I was like, she lives by the 9. Is that like, what, half a golf course?
We also learn that Sissy is, well, by Hampton considered a pariah. So, what a great introduction to a character before we've met them.
Yeah, I mean, very much the town, as we've said, has been ripped apart by Lumen, and the people there aren't particularly happy about those who now continue to extol those virtues. Um,
Yeah, there's a theory that she potentially could have been like the factory manager, because we get throughout this that not only is she very much drunk the Kool-Aid, but she could potentially have been making decisions as to whether people worked, feeding back information, and part of the reason why Harmony may have been uh, at least looked at earlier on. Obviously, she's clearly very capable and she's fast tracked through the wintertide and all that jazz. But because she is related to someone who is high up within the infrastructure in the city, there's probably an element of Nepo baby action going on there too.
well, there was a plaque. Where later on in the episode, we see a plaque which said quarterly striver, fourth quarter year of visions, youth apprentice matron, Celestine Sissy Cobell. So, yeah, she was very much making sure the younger workers, I assume, did their duties.
Yeah, she's the wrong one, is Sissy.
She's a company gal.
Yeah. And what a company.
Um, we also learn that the Hampton is using the ether that he also sells. She can smell it on his breath. But basically, she persuades him to let her hide in the back of his flatbed truck as they drive up to the house.
And he goes a little quicker over those speed bumps than he would normally, I think.
That's because he's off his tits.
Um, Great, and then we get to the house, right? And we meet Sissy in person. You are not welcome here. I do not want that huff peddler on my property. Um, and yeah, and Harmony fires back. You gave him his thirst for it, so blames Sissy for Hampton's current state.
And she's sold Harmony's things to the poor, which I think is a very interesting sentence surely just give them away for free.
Hmm.
You know, she's basically she's holier than thou, isn't she? But on the entirely wrong side of any morals, it seems. That kind of combination of things. I mean, when she first walked in there, I was like, are we now looking at Harmony's mum? Like at this point, I don't think we knew for sure that she wasn't Harmony's mum. So yeah, I just loved piecing the family tree or lack of together during this episode. I'm so glad you caught the sign because I really wanted to go back and pause it, but I didn't. So that's great.
I also noticed that just before we see that sign, we see her looking at the doorpost, right, with her name and the height, her various heights at different ages. And there was remarkably consistent growth during those years, and that the gap between each line is pretty much exactly the same year on year.
And then she didn't grow much after that, it seems.
Or she just stopped measuring.
No, no, I mean, when
Well,
she was standing next to it, she's actually not that much taller than the final line. Just growth spurt, done.
I think is it not also that basically by the time she was 12, she was no longer in that house, right? That's why it stopped. That's where we get to. I think it's 12. It goes up to because by that point she's already been fast tracked on her winter tide journey.
Yes, indeed. We also learn that Mr. Drummond has telephoned to speak to Sissy, presumably again to get her to sell her all her stuff. So Cobelvig is searching for something. She's looking throughout the house for something. She's trying to get the key to her mother's room, which is locked. Um, Sissy says it will stay shut until all who remember her sit with Keir. Um, and again, we get the mention of woe. Why do you bring nothing but woe into my life? You cursed us with woe. Um, and yeah, the kind of tension between the two of these obviously is around Charlotte Cobell, the mother's death, very much.
Yeah, because we kind of, well, we learned that Sissy removed the tube that was keeping her alive. Well, that's what Harmony says, and she says there was gratitude in her eyes to be freed from her suffering. Um, and then Harmony also asked, which I think is a really like emotional question, is what were her last words? You know, she's just desperate to seek some sort of connection or like, I don't know, some emotional kind of closure on her mother's death and isn't getting anything from Sissy except quite the slap.
Yeah, this conversation is continued later, isn't it? The what were her last words gives us that hint that Harmony wasn't around when her mother died. Um, and then we find out that she was at her Wintertide Fellowship studying. No apprentice was more industrious, so it was more important for her to focus on her studies for Lumen than it was for her to say goodbye to her mother.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that is so impactful about the performance is that we see those flashes of Harmony, the inner child coming to the fore, that it's so emotive for her to be there. I think also that manipulation that she was aware that her mum wasn't well because everyone probably was getting sick off the ether, and potentially she allowed herself to be manipulated by Sissy into following the Winstead training because I think she wanted to be there, right? She wanted to be, she says that she wanted to be there to look after her mum, but the pressure was on her to carry on with that. And I'm assuming that pressure would have come from Sissy. But the other thing to think about, really, then I guess, is what did Harmony's mum drink the Kool-Aid at any point or huff the ether, shall we say? And then did she realize I'm sick and therefore I can't work anymore? And then there's a kind of Damascene moment where she realizes that all of this was wrong, and then that then eats away at her, and she becomes this recluse because she's so ill and she has time to think about it, or not. I don't know. I would be interested to hear what your thoughts are.
Well, we get something from Hampton, don't we, later in the episode about something about Harmony's mum being one of the good people, or at least, yeah, do you remember, Adam?
She says she hated Lumen. He says she hated Lumen more than I did. But Sissy also says if only she'd been a believer, perhaps she'd have found solace in the nine. So Charlotte had some issue with Lumen, whether that was from her own employment there, whether everybody in the town, whether they work, I mean, assume that they all worked in the factory and there wasn't very much else to do, or whether it was because they took Harmony away from her, potentially, if they'd taken her away to this Wintertide Fellowship. Maybe that is, what really upsets Charlotte.
We still don't really know what Sissy's relationship is, do we, to Cabell's mum? We do?
She's her aunt, yeah.
Oh, so she's
She's
okay.
Charlotte's sister, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Charlotte's
Sissy is her aunt.
sister. Understood.
And we also know now that Cobel is the birth name and Selvig is the invention.
Mm,
Not
yeah.
the only invention, of course.
Indeed. Well, yeah, because ultimately she finds what she's looking for. By well, no, let's go to this. She searches through this room. She finds the key. She goes in there, and she attaches the breathing tube to this machine, an ether machine or breathing machine. What do we think?
Yeah, I think it's a kind of lung, isn't it? I don't think it's got ether in it. I would assume it's something to help oxygen get into the system rather than ether.
Yeah, it was like a dusty respirator, wasn't it? But this room was, oh gosh, there was sort of moth-eaten sweaters on the side. There was a photo, I think, of Harmony as a child. Um, but yeah, when she kind of, because she'd taken that breathing tube with her, that was in the car with her, wasn't it? That was what she was looking at when she was leaving Kia. And then she attached it, and it did make me feel a bit weird that she did that. It was like she was yeah, what was she doing? I feel like she was just trying to like almost consume some of her like mother's final breaths, or people do it, with grief, you hear about people like yeah, doing stuff like that. So I wonder if it was trying to connect with her mother through breath in some way and lie where she lay.
Yeah, it kind of also had a. Maybe I'm being weird here, weirder than that moment was, but there's almost like a suckling element to it as well, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely. And we had that shot, didn't we, of like the frozen water that then cut to like raging water, which I sort of read as the kind of currents underneath, going on that are coming to the surface. Maybe I read that a little bit literally. But yeah, it made me feel a bit weird that she did this.
Yeah, we had that shot of the swirling waves right at the top of the episode, didn't we? And then we get it again here. It's a really, really beautiful image, and kind of, for me, it was just like the kind of inside of the brain, almost sort of these memories swirling around and things like that. She's also making this, she's crying as she's breathing into this thing, and she's making sounds almost like a whale, which is something again that Sissy referenced, like her mother was making all of this noise while she was ill. Um,
And I love how small the bed was. It's just a really tiny touch, but Harmony Cobell was almost didn't fit in it. And it makes you realize how small and frail her mum must have been at the end. I thought that was a really, and anytime you just see like a hospital bed out of place, just that whole room was really impactful, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's an absolute lack of wealth there, right? It is very bare minimum stuff. Um, and then when you see that compared to what her housing was like when she was living next door to Mark, well, we don't really see too much of inside her house, do we? But we can assume that its layout is similar to Mark's.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I think also one of the talking about the kind of outer landscape mirroring the inner landscape. Also, we've got all that ice that's melting as well, which I think is we're seeing, that's obviously to mirror Cobelvig's journey as she goes from being potentially luminescent, as you say, Adam, to being part of is it the whole mind? Is that what they're called?
yeah,
Yeah, I think it is whole mind, isn't it? I always want to call them like unity mind or something like that, but I think it is whole mind, the whole mind movement.
they're a collective, aren't they?
Yes. probably.
Um, well, the blighted snuff snail finally gets into the house and offers Cobel the opportunity to get high, which she hasn't done since she was 8. And they have a little kiss.
Yeah, so they're not siblings.
It's
I
not
mean,
the
it's
white.
remote. So this remote, but I don't think it's that remote.
Yeah, it's not the White Lotus. Um, and he says, "I don't think it's here. What you're looking for." Whether he's speaking literally or metaphorically, but she says she wouldn't throw it away. And then they have the idea to go into the little hobbit house. There's a little shed in a hill, a basement type affair, um, where she finds her annual reminiscences, which shows that she was a valedictorian and had the Jamie Egan Fellowship.
But wasn't she also? I can't remember what it was exactly, but there's something about her being like the one of the most accomplished people to have ever done the fellowship, right?
Well,
Yeah, she's got all these head prizes, right? I don't know what else to call them.
it's a bust, but as a trophy, yeah. There's something on the trophy, the bust, and inside the trophy, obviously, is the file that she's been seeking. And we later learn in this discussion with Sissy that the designs for Severance were hers. Her circuit blueprint, her base code, the overtime contingency, the Glasgow block, everything that Jay Megan has told that he's invented were her own designs.
Yes. And she says something like, if I sought credit for it, I would be banished, or something like that. I didn't think I quite got the line down correctly there. Um, but yeah, this was quite a reveal, wasn't it? I was like, oh, I thought Severance was going on longer than that. But we now have a bit of a timeline, don't we, of like invention.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, really interesting to get this. I was sort of jaw drop reveal, really, that she was the one who invented all of this stuff. Again, in the recap, we had Helena telling Mark that it was her father who invented it all, didn't we? And this all kind of comes bursting out of harmony after the argument with Sissy around Lumen destroying the town. And interestingly, she says, "You owe Lumen fealty."
Google's fealty.
Like it's their liege lord. It's kind of like a feudal setup, really, isn't it? Because that's what I was trying to work out. How much did Saltneck exist before the factory, or does Saltneck solely exist because of the factory? Because if it is that people came to that place because of the factory rather than there were people there already and then more people came, it definitely does give that kind of feudal lord element to that, really, to that space.
Yeah, I wonder if it was like a small sort of fishing settlement that then became a town once Lumen arrived and built it all up. But yeah, um, yeah, and then we get the final reveal that Sissy says that her mother was a coward, that she removed the tube on her own, and that she was more sick in the soul than in the body, filled with malice and resentment.
Yeah, paints a very grim picture, doesn't it? I mean, can we trust Sissy? No. But yeah, that was pretty rough for Harmony to hear.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of the previous episode where they basically were telling Gemma that Mark's remarried and has a daughter now. They're not beyond like saying really hurtful, cutting things just to get their way.
Yeah,
Well, it's a fanaticism, isn't it? They're all complete fanatics in this kind of. I mean, it is it's a completely capitalistic endeavor, but it shrouds itself in religiosity, right? And that's how they can keep those people so fanatical and radicalized.
yeah, they just believe their own bullshit 100%.
Oh, yeah, you could put it that way, yeah.
Well, she comes out and Hampton says someone's coming. So he gives her she gets the keys to his truck, I assume. But she basically makes her escape, doesn't she? And he says, "Come tame these tempers, assholes."
Yeah, I loved that.
I'll
Yeah,
be honest. I thought maybe when he said what you're looking for, you won't find here, was him inviting Harmony to come and tame his tempers.
I think he was definitely wanting some of that, wasn't he?
And
But
rightly
like,
so.
not on your mother's deathbed. If we're gonna pick places, really? Is that the place to make your move?
Look, ether is a hell of a drug.
Speaking of ether, though, I know I did want to mention earlier that this I have to credit to Krzysztof because I didn't know this. I think ether was known as sweet oil of vitriol. So I think that's where the episode title comes from.
that's lovely, lovely little find that one.
Hmm. Yeah, so anyway, Cobelvig's driving away, kind of maniacally slightly, isn't she? And then the third or fourth time Devon's tried to call, she finally picks up. And what does she say? I now can't remember, and I haven't written it down.
Tell me everything.
Blackout.
Yeah, she hasn't killed him yet. Tell me everything. Lovely stuff.
Mm.
Um, I mean,
Was also Well, I'm just going to say quickly about the ether thing. All right, so obviously ether was originally used in a medicinal capacity as a number. So either something to numb pain or to, I think, potentially put people under as well, which then leads us to this whole thing of people being put under to in order to have the chip added. But I guess also it's that thing of people numbing themselves with through capitalism from feeling anything by buying stuff or buying into whatever big corporations are selling us. I mean, saying this, obviously this show is on Apple TV Plus. So I mean, let's be a bit more real about what this show is actually trying to say.
I think what I love most about this episode is how it kind of explained a lot of why Harmony Cobell is the way she is. She's always been a bit of a elusive, always been this kind of slightly strange figure in Severance. We don't get a lot of comedy from her. She's just very still. She speaks slowly and with purpose. And I loved how this really filled that out for me. Like, she basically didn't have a childhood, did she? She was doing ether and then what was it, manning the vat for 10 hours? Um, and and also it shows how much she gets her self-worth from work because that's all she's known. So now that she's not with Lumen and has kind of gone rogue, I'm very excited to see what that does with her and where she'll get kind of, I guess, the thrill of work, where she'll get that from elsewhere.
Yeah, she's got because everything we've seen about her so far, right, is it's kind of she's very analytical, but also very reactive rather than proactive, which feels like, as you were saying, if you have a history of trauma and just trying to survive through whatever it is that you're experiencing, invariably you are going to be reactive rather than proactive, aren't you?
Yeah, it feels like she just lays low and then there's an explosion. Like whether that's her, looking back to the shrine in was it season one, some sort of weird shrine she had in the house that she destroyed, whether that's almost running Mark over. She definitely has that. I think she keeps everything inside and then it just explodes. And I think now we're just going to get endless explosions from Harmony Cobell.
but she was also middle management in Lumen, right? When we meet her at the beginning of season one. And, she was meant to be the most impressive student of the Wintertide Fellowship and won all these trophies and awards. And I wonder if there's been periods of time where she's maybe tried to step out and step up and talk about what she had discovered. Um, and she's been sort of pushed back down a little bit. But there are others definitely who are of a higher rank than her in the company.
Well, there's that conversation she has with Helena, right? Where they wanted to come back outside. I think it's in the previously. and she says what she wants to do. I want to come back. I want to run it. I want this. Basically, a slightly higher up, and she's told she's overcounted her blessings or whatever it is. So yeah, and I think previously she's been happy where she is because she feels like, her back has her tummy has been scratched enough for her not to look further, for want of a better metaphor. And she gets to be near the thing that she's created, which explains the kind of micromanagement of Mark, particularly why she's moved next door to him, why she's so involved in his life, is because she cares about the science. She's a scientist, she's an engineer or whatever first, but all of this has been leading to her realizing the lack of acknowledgement that she has had, I think, right?
Yeah, and she's dangerous to Lumen, right? If they don't keep an eye on her and keep her in her place, she's pretty dangerous. She knows everything. She invented the thing. Uh, so now that she's gone rogue and is heading to Mark's house, we think, um, that's kind of amazing because she obviously knows about the overrides. She knows how to do it all. So a very good day for team macro data refinement.
Well, we've only got 2 episodes left of this season. Episode 9 is called The After Hours, and the little blurb reads Mark and Devon team with an ally. Who could that be? And Helly investigates further. Now, episode 10. Do you want the title of episode 10?
Yeah,
Yes.
Cold Harbor.
goodness.
So the Helly investigating further maybe makes me think, she knows where this note is. Is she going to try to maybe even successfully get to the exports hall?
Love that. I can see that happening. Yeah, the note. We haven't had the note. We haven't had any payoff for the note yet. So that's surely coming. Yeah, definitely. Gosh.
Well, the final thing we get in the opening credits, and I know you were talking about it on a previous episode, Grace, is, does this end with Helly going down the lift? Now, does that mean that the end of episode 9 is Helly going down in the lift rather than the end of episode 10? So that's interesting as to whether they can stretch it.
Hmm.
Because I'm assuming a lot of the next episode will be focused on Mark and Devon and Cabell, and obviously Dr. Mugabe is now surplus to requirements, which is useful narratively, of course.
I mean, you know, final episode, surely Mark's going to get to 99% of Cold Harbor and then we're going to go to Blackout, something like that, right? We were told he was on 86%. So, but he was a bit stuck, wasn't he? So let's see. I hope we finish this series and we're really satisfied with the questions that we've had answered and not left with hundreds more new ones.
I mean, I'd love to see oh, her name's gone out of my head now. Gwendolyn Christie. Her character once again before the series is out, before the season is out, even. Um, and also, I'd like a bit more. I wonder whether we're going to get Bert's true nature revealed.
I would like a Irving Outie and Bert brunch date without
Oh,
Fields there.
goodness me, that's cheeky and very problematic. Have you been watching Maths again, Grace?
Mm-mm,
No,
mm-mm.
okay, sorry, I thought you might say something there. There is another theory. Hold tight, the Reddit crew. So, talking about Bert and Fields and Irving, there's the conversation where Fields says it's 20 years, and Bert says, "Oh, that's a slip up." He gets confused. He's sloppy. He gets sloppy when he drinks. It's got worse every time I've done it. Sorry, but don't nod too vigorously at that, Grace. But the theory is that partner that they were talking to 20 years ago, Miss Cobelvig, and then if you want to really go down that rabbit hole, who is Irving speaking to on the phone? And someone thinks maybe it's Cobelvig, but I think that's mental.
Could be, but I feel like we've only now got fully, let's call her outie Cobelvig, like she's out of the Lumen gaze and the kind of the Lumen power. I don't feel like she would have done that with Irving before, but maybe, yeah. Who's Irving been calling? Oh, it's like the goats all over again.
Wait, sorry, are you calling Irving and Bert the Lumen gays?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Grand. Well, that probably will do us for this episode. Whilst you look for a line to see us out on, I will let our listeners know that this episode might be on YouTube. We do have a YouTube channel. We'll put a link to that into the podcast description. We're also now up on Ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/TVDNA, where we are raising funds for some very special things ahead for TVDNA. So if you've enjoyed us talking about Severance and you've got a spare few pounds and a spare few minutes, go and check out our Ko-fi.com page. We're going to be putting a bit of content and bits and pieces up on there as well over the coming weeks. But we'd really, really love it if we could get your support in that adventure.
And just to add, if you don't want to put money into Ko-fi and you'd rather hand it over personally, I'm going to be in New York week commencing the 7th of April. So if any of our listeners in New York fancy meeting up for a drink, I will be about, and it would be great to meet up with anyone. Obviously, you can reach out on the socials at TVDNA Pod, or you can send an email to tvdnapod@gmail.com.
Or hit us up on Discord. Just TVDNA on there.
Yeah, we do check that, honestly.
Apparently, we can link our Ko-fi to our Discord.
Sounds painful.
Go on then. Have you got a line to see us out on?
Well, not really. I don't really have a good one. Damo, do you have one?
Yes. You've no salutation here, you blighted snuff slave.
Thanks for listening. Keep watching those TVs.
Goodbye.